All Hail Biafra! This is Biafra Liberation Army Network coming to you again. Please like, share, and comment.
Someone Ekpa's conviction yesterday for 6 months in the hands of the Finnish authorities when they convicted him guilty of terrorism charges, of sponsoring secessionist movements in Nigeria, of engaging in acts that are inimical to the peace and continued sovereignty of Nigeria, of having tax-related, offenses. Yes. After they said, you are hereby convicted and found guilty, and you will remain in Finnish confinement for the next 6 years. Although they said, of course, that ruling, of course, is not absolute. It still has a chance for appeal, as is normal with legal contemporary practice. The last words, ladies and gentlemen, it might interest you to know the last words that were uttered by our own indefatigable, fearless, brash, intelligent, highly cerebral Simon Ekpa. Simon Ekpa's last words was to Biafrans. He said, Biafrans, don't weep for me. Biafrans, don't give up. Don't weep for me, don't give up. The struggle must continue. Yes, it is not over. The struggle must continue. You must fight feverishly. I'm stepping aside does not mean I'm completely out of the way. The struggle is on the brink of success. It doesn't matter. It's not about any person. Biafrans, don't wait for me. The struggle must continue. So, ladies and gentlemen, those were the words spoken by our fearless, brave, eloquent Prime Minister yesterday after the conviction, when he would now be moving down to a full Finnish prison, because, of course, he was convicted for, aiding and abetting secessionist moves in southeastern Nigeria, calling, for a secession of part of Nigerian country, part of Nigerian country in the southeast, making the southeast ungovernable, as they claimed, and of course engaging in tax evasion activities, according to Finnish authorities. Of course, you must give a dog a bad name because you want to maim it or you want to kill it. Yes, nobody comes out to kill a dog without accusing it of one thing or the other. And so that old adage, give a dog a bad name because you want to maim it, you want to kill it. That's what really came to the fore yesterday in the Finnish court. Ladies and gentlemen, yes, Simon Ekpa is out of the way. Yes, he's going to be in the jails of the Finnish authorities for the next 6 years. Yes, of course, except something happens, except the appeal, is successful, which of course his lawyers, all of his lawyers, are doing their think tanks now and trying to explore ways and means to make sure they, fight against this conviction. Of course, they're going to look into where these judges overreacted or did not take into cognizance certain submissions that were made by, his defense attorneys. Of course, they know, of course, that, this is the voice of Finland, yes. This is the voice of Alexander Stubbs' country, yes. But they know equally that, yes, the hands, there's a puppeter. There's somebody who, controls the puppet. And they know, of course, such people are the high and mighty in the zoo called Nigeria. Yes, they know, and of course they want to see what they can do, to bring this judgment to the full glare of the world, so that other European countries, American countries, other world powers would come and see what Finland has done with an innocent situation that arose because of none other than Simon Ekpa. I mean, his lawyers are going to make sure that the whole world, including the 47th President of the United States, Mr. Donald Trump, and world leaders will see what Finland has done. Because, of course, the whole world knows that freedom fighting, freedom seeking individuals who run, their protests, who run their, campaigns must do so, especially if because their people are still being treated unfairly. Yes, the United Nations Charter is clear on this. When the people repeatedly insist that they're not comfortable where they find themselves with any amalgamation with any community, any indigenous group that says, we don't want to belong here, we don't find the future here, we're not treated fairly here, we're not wanted here, we are highly impoverished here, and if we continue here, we cannot sustain fairness, equity, and justice. That's what the UN Charter says. And these indigenous people say, we want to go. By all means, according to the UN Charter, by all means, they should be let to go, if especially they have been insisting for back to back over 4 decades. In the Biafra case, ladies and gentlemen, especially since the amalgamation in 1914, since even Lord Lugard and his associates were vehemently clear, they were clear and precise that if this amalgamation of the northern and southern protectorate of Nigeria did not become a success between the next 100 years, then of course each region is free to go where it pleases. That was what was enshrined in the documents, of the amalgamation, of the declaration of the amalgamation of Nigeria, the northern and southern protectorate in 1914. The document is clear and precise. And so, of course, that 100 years was fully achieved in 2014. 2014, the amalgamation of Nigeria became a full 100 years. And it had become very apparent, very clear, especially with the secessionist struggles of almost all the regions. The Southwest are fighting for the Oduduwa Kingdom. The North are fighting for, Arewa Kingdom, liberation. Of course, the South is fighting for the Biafra secessionist movement. Even the so-called South are fighting for the Ogoni people's rights. Everybody is fighting. Everybody is clamoring for their own region. That means the 2014 amalgamation by Lord Lugard was a complete fiasco. If you ask me, he brought different nationalities, different entities together, people with different cultures, divergent cultures, people with different religions, people with different levels of societal ambitions, people with different levels of motivations, brought them together like a potpourri and wanted them, subsumed them in one pot. Of course, it didn't work and it became a complete fiasco. And normally, if you ask me, somebody once wrote an amalgamation of Nigeria in 1914, bringing the southern protectorate to the northern protectorate, was the worst nightmare that was foisted on the people by the European leaders led by Lord Lugard. It was a nightmare because it was a contraction that was destined to fail. The North and the South had nothing in common. One was Islamic, whatever in their, and these other ones were Republicans. One practiced serfdom, where the emir was at the apex. The sultan was at the apex of authority. But in the south, nobody, even the so-called chieftaincies, uh, chiefdom was not in existence. Every man, was on his own. Every man fed out his nest. Nobody was interested in any emir, in any oba, in any chiefs. In fact, the idea of ezeship is a recent phenomenon, and a lot of people have not even given it a special prominence in their nomenclature, yes, or in their daily life. And so bringing the North and the South together in 1914 was a complete nightmare, doomed to fail by Lord Lugard. Ladies and gentlemen, even though the Southeast were amongst those who fought for the independence of this country in 1960, yes, they removed the Union Jack and brought in the Nigerian flag. Yeah, the Southeast, our nationalists. Some lost their lives. Some lost everything they got in life. Some devoted their life to the struggle. Today, today, they have been consigned to the dustbins of history. Yes, that's how it is. Because, of course, Nigeria was never meant to come together. Nigeria was never meant to be a united conglomerate. No, each of the regions had their separate ambitions. Each of the regions had their different levels of motivations. When a people do not have one motivation, when they do not have one, when a people do not have one mission statement, one agenda, one hope, one goal, of course. Everybody will go their divergent ways. Everybody will seek their divergent ambitions and goals. And of course, there will be tyranny. There will be oppression. Yes, people would definitely be trampled upon in the ambition of one region to get to the top. Yes, at the detriment of another region. That's what has been happening. That is why the Biafran people have been marginalized, so badly, especially again because of the coup in 1966, January coup of 1966, which was dubbed the Igbo coup. All of a sudden, widespread hatred and anger was enkindled against the Biafrans, and everybody wanted, a pound of flesh. Everybody wanted their slice of the Biafran heart. They wanted Biafra to be completely eliminated and excised from Nigeria. In fact, it was almost a pogrom, a genocide against the Biafran people. And every material at their disposal, every weaponry at their disposal, every opportunity was utilized to the maximum uh, capacity to destroy, to annihilate, and completely eradicate, the Biafran people between 1967, 68, 69, 70 in a needless war, unprovoked war against the Biafran people. Ladies and gentlemen, that has been the reason for the struggle. Yes, nobody does not want to live in peace. People ask me, why are you agitating for Biafra? Why are you agitating for Biafra? Don't you know you can have peace when you agitate? How can you have peace? How can you have peace when you remember how your mother was slain, your daddy was slain, your sisters were gang raped? When you remember how your uncles and able-bodied men had their fingers cut off, designed in such a way that they could not hold the machete anymore. They could not hold the hoes. They couldn't farm. They couldn't do anything useful because, of course, their hands were deliberately removed, cut in such a manner because they thought the Nigerian soldiers felt if we cut this hand, remove this index finger, remove this, remove that they will not be able to handle the gun. That was what they thought. And that was why People were penalized. People's fingers were distorted, experimented upon. Pregnant women had their pregnancies aborted. Embryos, fetus were forced out in a scientific experiment, all aimed at exterminating the Biafran people. Under this arrangement, ladies and gentlemen, how can you live in peace when you remember that your loved ones who died, these martyrs, their souls are still roaming, because there's no place, nobody has discussed their matter, nobody has apologized over such a momentous, wicked, dark period in the history of this country, where everything was done to annihilate the Igbo people. Yes, the Biafran people. How can the dead be appeased? How can the spirit of the dead be appeased when nobody had remembered them, nobody had prayed for them for the repose of their souls? There must be consequences for every action. Yes, unfortunately, even since then, when they said under the Jaragowan administration, no victor, no vanquished, come back, Biafrans, you come back to the country. We still want to receive, you are still one of us, we're still together. Unfortunately, they brought us back. And what did they do? They said no victor, no vanquished. They talked about the 3 R's: reconciliation, reconstruction, and rehabilitation. How did they start it? Nothing. It was a colossal failure from inception. Colossal failure from inception, because they gifted the Biafrans 20 pounds. 20 pounds, miserable, partly 20 pounds, no matter how much you had in your coffers, no matter how much you had in your bank. And as if they are not done with that, they declared an indigenization policy where they declared the homes, the businesses, the edifices, companies built by, the Biafrans as abandoned properties of war, which should be taken over as booty from war. And so you not only, fought a needless fight, you didn't only have your relations and brothers and sisters, mothers killed, wiped out, deleted. Why? You didn't only have your uncles of mature age having their fingers caught in patterns to prevent them from being of any use to themselves or being of any destructive purpose to the north. No, Nigerian soldier, no. You lost everything and you came back hoping to start again. You had lost your home, you had lost your businesses, you had lost your companies. And as if not enough, you wanted to go back, resort to the monies you saved over the years. And of course, they told you, they looked at you in the face and said, no, lady and gentleman, the only thing you can have is this 20 pounds. Take it. You should be thankful. You should be grateful that you have this money given to you. Ladies and gentlemen, the Igbos, the Biafrans have suffered so much untold acrimony. Yes, they have hated us without reason, pathological hatred, if you like. They have envied us for no just cause. After all, back to back, since independence, it has been, the North and the Southwest that have been enjoying the leadership of this country. The North had it severally in the civilian, the North had it severally in the military, as military heads of states. It has been the North all the way. Because, of course, we have this mantra, quote, we are born to rule. They said they were born to rule, and they have vigorously sustained leadership back to back since independence in this country. And every time they want to just give a bit to the South, they give it to the Southwest. Every time they want to just change the button, they give it to the Southwest. Never, never intending to give it to the Southeast. Never. Of course, it's never, never. Because, of course, they don't trust the Southeast. They envy the Southeast. They have massive pathological suspicion about the Southeast. They have pathological hatred against the Southeast. There's nothing good they wish for the Southeast. Every time we plant a seed, They don't let it grow. They nip it in the bud. Every time we have an idea in the southeast and Biafra land, they don't let it germinate. They make sure they destroy it before it grows. So under this arrangement, why should we not seek Biafra? Why should we not resort to seeking for the redeclared sovereign United States of Biafra? Ladies and gentlemen, people who ask us, why Biafra? Why at this time? They should know where we're coming from. They should know where the rain started beating us. And we have known it is still raining on us. And we must ensure that it doesn't rain on us anymore. Simon Ekpa, yes, has gone. He's been convicted 6 years. But he has told us, Biafrans, don't weep for me. Don't be deterred. The struggle must continue. You have Dr. Ngozi Arabueze. Follow her. She has taken the baton and she's doing very well. I will still communicate with her. We're still in touch and we'll continue to be in touch. Yes, don't give up the struggle. Get up, stand up, rise up. Don't give up the struggle. Those were very powerful, palpable words of our leader, Simon Ekpa Njoku, yesterday as he was being led away. Don't give up the struggle. Don't weep about me. Don't weep for me. The struggle must continue. Biafra is not about anybody. Biafra is a people's culture, a people's way of life, a people's ambition, a people's hope for tomorrow. Nothing must stop the struggle.